Hello, my name is Paulo Dominguez. I am an eco-anthropologist of the French National Center for Scientific Research based at the Museum of Humankind of Paris, and I will be giving a speech about the biocultural heritage system of pastoral commons as key to global environmental sustainability, including climate change. Pastoral commons are at the same time a natural and a cultural subject. They are ever-evolving pastoral lands co-produced and conserved by local populations who agree between each other the rules of access and use of the territories and ecosystems on which their livelihoods depend, through centenary processes of essay and error. The whole system in its entirety is a paradigmatic example of tangible and intangible cultural heritage, intrincated with the ecosystems, where the traditional ecological knowledge of millenary cultures, the know-how in terms of negotiation and cohabitation between pastoralist communities to maintain resilient systems through time, the care between humans and between humans and other living beings, and the related beliefs and symbolic system are deeply intertwined with a unique biological and ecological diversity that would not exist without intangible cultural heritage of the commons that promotes it and reinforces it. Communities governing their land collectively generally have a strong cultural heritage and are the first interested in its sustainability, as their survival depends on the conservation of these ecosystems to which they are deeply connected. It is so much so that the main international organizations for the conservation of nature, as the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the Convention of Biological Diversity, or the United Nations Environmental Programme, are now championing the promotion and protection of such systems. In fact, studies by the prestigious Consortium on Indigenous People and Local Community Conserved Areas and Territories and the United Nations Environment Programme with the World Conservation Monitoring Center have estimated that up to more than one-fifth of the Earth's land surface is covered by commons still today, while the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, elevates that number to 31% of the Earth's land surface, which at the same time overlaps with high levels of land under the category of key biodiversity areas. One of the most paradigmatic forms of collective governance of natural resources is pastoralism, most often sustained through collective rules of access and community management of grazing areas. It is estimated that pastoral ways of life are practiced by millions of families worldwide, with estimates ranging between 150 and 500 million people, at the same time that nearly 50% of the Earth's surface is linked to rangelands and to these ways of life, as shown in the figure. And they include environments as diverse as cold and dry deserts, steppes, scrublands, savannas, flourishing meadows, mountain pastures and forests, deltas, and other wetlands. In this sense, it is important to underline that due to their global importance, the United Nations has called for the 2026 International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralism, at the same time that transhumance, the move of herds between complementary rangelands, notably between highlands and lowlands, that again is managed collectively by the different communities of pastoralists, they are commons, has been recently declared as a world's intangible cultural heritage by the UNESCO. In strict agronomic terms, pastoral commons typically involve assemblies of pastoralists that, after discussion and negotiation, impose a total or partial prohibition of access to a pastoral space or resource during a determined period, for example, in temperate regions in spring, which allows the vegetation to rest at a very particularly sensitive period and protects the moment when the most important exponential plant growth, flowering, and grain production are taking place, ensuring so its annual renewal and sustained use year after year. At the same time, this maximizes fodder production, which contributes to a greater biomass, the green section that you see in the model exposed. Sorry. With its associated biodiversity, and on its turn, it produces thick organic soils and therefore stocks high levels of carbon, which are at the same time very stable carbon sinks, since the carbon is buried underground and protected from escaping to the atmosphere through, for example, wildfires or wood cutting, from which forests and the carbon contained in these are not so well protected or stable. For this reason, it is very important that the cultural heritage of pastoral commons, spread throughout all continents, is increasingly taken into consideration in front of the obsessive tree planting for carbon sequestration in areas where either there were no trees for millennia, or they are badly adapted, or impose the exclusion of traditional dwellers and their cultural heritage. But it's important to know their exact spatial range. As much as their precise environmental, sociocultural, and economic impact and value, it's not possible to know this unless a major comparative research on these commons is properly launched at a global level. This would also be the first step towards elaborating an effective protection and promotion plan that can no longer be postponed, since many of these heritage systems are threatened or in deep degradation. And this is doubly important because these heritage systems, once lost, are very hard, to not say impossible, to restore, as they are indeed much more easy to destroy than to build up. Please take into account that they reached to us after several millennia of constant adaptive processes between nature and pastoralists, generation after generation. In that sense, I identify 5 major needs: a global, international, empiric, detailed testing of the environmental pros and cons of the commons, the proper identification of their socio-economic, cultural, legal, and political challenges and opportunities, quantifying their surface productivity and people involved, properly specializing commons through cartographic mapping and searching the overlap between them and globally important carbon sinks and key biodiversity areas. All in all, to consider and consolidate the rights of commoners and heritage holders to their land, and in that way build a path towards the commons of tomorrow and boost their immense contribution to the global sustainability that we are so needed of. Thank you very much.